This is 98.1 Pearl FM.
Enjoyed it. I'd like to start off today on a very somber note. During the holidays and the weekend gone, we have lost a good friend, a brother, a father. St. Martin has lost one of his dearest sons, a true patriot, a humble and friendly person, a people's person. I'm speaking, of course, about the former senator, former Island Council member, former commissioner, Mr. Joe Richardson. I would like to, on behalf of the morning show and Pearl Radio and myself and family, extend our heartfelt condolences to the family and friends and wish you God's strength going forward. Joe was truly a St. Martin patriot and a man that was approachable any time of the day and with a smile would give you whatever advice you sought. May Joe Richardson rest in peace. And of course, the Carnival parades and the shows are over. It's back to work. I know some of us are still not over the partying time yet, but everything comes to an end, the good and the bad. And right now, it's time to get back to work. On another note, we have noted with interest that the budget deficit for 2017, the amended budget that was estimated at 153 million guilders, has been corrected down now to 72 million. It brings me back to our discussion of some time, whether we were leading this country or just operating from panic, from emotions. After the hurricane, things looked bad, but nobody took an assessment of what is happening, what there is. We went out on all kind of conjecture and came up with this idea, and we thought that we could just stick out our hands and ask the Dutch to do it for us what we can and should have been doing for ourselves, and we put ourselves in a very peculiar situation. And as I said back then and I maintain now, the only difference between doing it yourself and depending on the Dutch is time, and I don't think they saved any time for me, because the construction of this recovery trust fund is going to cost us more time than it would have if we depended on our own resources. St. Martin is on its way back. We're having serious problems with the insurance for businesses, for government-owned businesses and other businesses. And as I've said last week, I believe that the leader of government, Mr. Theo Heiliger, his idea to put a mediation team together to deal with the insurance and its problems with its clients is really not necessary. It's not well thought out. We have the mechanisms in place legally to deal with these things. The Central Bank of Curaçao and St. Martin regulates the insurance business and supervises the insurance business. And I would have liked to hear Parliament or the Council of Ministers appealing to the Central Bank to intervene in getting the process moved forward. Every institution in this country, and it's conveniently used by the politicians, have the right to go to court. The politicians tell, yeah, let justice have its way, or let the court have its way. That is true. However, we elect governments for governments to take decisions, and people don't have to always go to court to get some kind of satisfaction or some kind of reprieve. So there are mechanisms in government to deal with what's happening in insurance. I would like to see those exhausted before we force individuals, companies, and government-owned companies to have to spend months in courts delaying the process of the recovery, delaying the process of rebuilding, because the insurance, after bleeding the country for so many years without any calamities, any incident, now find it difficult to pay or are unwilling to pay the assessments that they're given. So I believe that the politicians, our government, our parliament in this case, have to revisit this whole thing. And I think it is time we ask the central government to give us an opinion, get involved, and let us know what's happening, what can be done, other than being tied up in courts for the next year or two, where we would get nothing done. I think the idea that from the trust fund, we can get 50 million set aside for the airport, and that the airport will continue rebuilding, and that sounds good in theory, but the airport doesn't have that problem if the insurance will do what they're expected to do. We just came out of an election, and we expect people to lead. We don't expect people to come up with all kind of knee-jerk ideas, knee-jerk solutions for things that only sinks us deeper into a hole. I am totally against the idea, and more so the idea that we should give the Dutch a member on the board of the airport board of directors so that we can get a loan from this trust fund that supposedly is controlled by St. Martin. That's the principle or the premise it went out from, to assist the airport, and then for the life of that loan, we have to keep them on the board of our company. I don't think it's a good one. I don't think the politician can just decide it that way. There are other companies in government, I'm going to go back to another one in a while, where the politicians are taking decisions on behalf of the companies and thinking is right, and they know for sure it isn't right. We know in the 90s we've had a lot of arrests for politicians getting involved in the action or the lack thereof of boards and board members, and it seems like we're going the same way again. As I said before, we don't need to get any mediator. We don't need a loan for the airport. If we would get the central bank to get involved and deal with what's happening with the insurance, because people cannot in this country for over 22 years pay their insurance premiums concurrently, and then when there's the first calamity, the insurance comes up with all kind of schemes and all kind of fine prints that supposedly you didn't read as a reason of not to comply with their obligation. So let's revisit that. Let's honestly look at helping our people and go about it the right way. Over the weekend, some people were talking about this show, and one of the questions that came up was, but what is wrong with our people? Why don't they see these things? And I thought long and hard, because you want to give an answer that makes some kind of sense, an answer that it could really look into. And the only thing I could think of the time, the only thing is wrong with our people is that we have lost the will to live by the sweat of our brow. You know, it is written that by the sweat of thine brow shall thou eat bread. And in St. Martin, it has become now, beg for as much as you can, and there'll be no sweating needed, and see what you could get away with for nothing. That is what's wrong with our people. That is why we're not looking at things. That is why we're not standing up to defend our children. That is why our children can't get places in school, or we can't pay the school fees, because we're not willing to fight for nothing. We think everything should be handed to us. We're willing now, and for quite a while, to ask the Dutch, ask the Greek, ask anybody, rather than doing what we were accustomed of. We built this country when we had no experts, we had no engineers, we had no managers, no directors, but we built quite a good country, quite a good economy. We did on our own. And people that built a country like St. Martin, if you were around when I was to see where it came from to where it is today, because many people think it has always been here. But to build this, you have to have some kind of qualities. And our qualities were hardworking and always willing to help the neighbor. Today, it looks like we're more willing to kill the neighbor than even tell them good morning. So that is what's wrong with our people. We have to go back to the principle of by the sweat of thy brow shall thee eat bread. Pearl, welcome back. And how was your weekend?
Hey, bro, pretty good, Mr. Jones. Everything is under control with you?
Yeah, man. I went jumping juvie there playing young, leave me with all kind of pains I didn't know you couldn't get.
See, you survived the onslaught, though.
Oh yeah, it's all right.
Okay. Well, good morning to all those of you who are in tune with 98.1 Pearl FM. It's always a pleasure to have you. And to all the viewers, wherever you may be. And don't forget to visit our website, www.pearlfmradio.sx, so that you would be able to also view us there. And, of course, good morning to Saber and Stacia. How are you this morning? Not forgetting the north side of St. Martin and those who are viewing us on the TV Carib. Okay? So nice to have you. Anyway, Mr. Jones, seems as though the carnival has just begun. Oh, the carnival has just finished.
Well,
We're going to finish up tonight.
there's one more jump to go, and then it's really over. I think it has been good. We're gonna try and get some of the participants to come in and talk about their experiences in this year. And next year is going to be the 50th year, and we hope that we could contribute to making it better. And the only way we can do that is to hear from the people what the challenges and bottlenecks are, and hopefully we will have a great 50th carnival and see what's happening. But I am very interested in talking to the three Calypso competition finals, the people from the troops, and maybe a few booth holders. These are some of the main stakeholders, and we like to know their take on it, and we will be inviting them to come in one day to give us a rundown on how they see things.
Fantastic. Matter of fact, we would like kind of move to the Netherlands and see what's happening over there. When it comes to the Netherlands, we realize that they are dealing with an issue. The Prime Minister, Mr. Mark Rutte, and the Finance Minister, they face a stormy debate in the Parliament on Wednesday afternoon, which happens to be today, right?
Yeah.
And, well, of course, they are more hours ahead of us. And following the publication of memos about the new government's controversial decision to abolish the dividend tax.
Dividend tax. Yeah, I saw crazy man Wilders. I saw Wilders debating that issue, and I saw him attacking the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance real aggressively, and he believed they should resign because it's becoming, according to him, it's becoming a habit in the Netherlands for politicians to lie to the people and get away with it unscathed. He also referred to
That's interesting, though.
Yeah, it's very interesting for a country that keep talking about integrity. He also referred to the minister that supposedly talked to Putin, and Putin told him what he wanted to do with the former Russian satellites, and he had to resign for that because it was later realized it was a lie. So it seems like in the Netherlands, doctoring or playing with the truth seemed to be a way of doing politics in a country that likes to think that they have the monopoly on integrity. So I listened to that debate. I listened to Wilders. I think he's a madman, but I think he was on point in that debate. And I think it's important that Samaritan people listen to what's happening in these countries, because whatever is said about us and is spread about us, we jump on the bandwagon and use the same words. But we fail to understand that these things and worse happen in these people, but they have this right that white is right, and because they're bigger, they're colonial power, they have a right to dictate to us what we can do. And our people still live under the old principle that if you want to hide something from us, you just put it in a book, because we don't read, we don't follow anything. All we do basically is say what we heard, and we change it to suit our arguments, but we have no way of proving or substantiating the statement we made. But it is interesting. I am going to pick it up later, the debate, and see where it is. But it is interesting that everything we do seems to be problematic to them. How is it now that we can see that the way they're acting is not in keeping with the principles of good governance, which they always mention when they're on this side of the Atlantic?
Well, what they're saying is that the memos make it clear that finance ministry officials felt abolishing the tax on foreign shareholders did not play a major role in the Netherlands' attractiveness as a place to do business, and as argued strongly by the cabinet, by the way, and if we continue to view here, in addition, it would be bad for the Netherlands' image. Well, who knows if it would, because it increased the risk of companies moving money through the country as part of a tax avoidance scheme. That was what the finance ministry officials actually say.
I don't know what they talk about the Dutch image. If you read Forbes has written that the largest money launderers in Europe is the Dutch. They name Rabobank and ABN AMRO Bank for laundering money. That moving money through Europe seems that seems to have the biggest laundry in Europe. So I don't know about their image. There are things that if it would happen on this side of the Atlantic, it will never leave the headline. Even the local newspapers don't put those things because they don't think it is necessary to report on the negatives in the Netherlands. But while they're quite willing to report on anything that is negative in Saman. So it's not about the image. I don't think they have an image. Their politics is lacking. It leaves a lot to be desired. Their honesty is lacking also. And they have no idea what it means to be honest. And while they sing integrity, they seem to not realize what it really means.
Okay, as we continue, we have some more for you, but we will be getting to that momentarily. But you had some very interesting points there that you were actually touching.
Yeah, I really needed to touch on what is happening in this country, and people's feeling of what is wrong with the country. First of all, I wanted to refer back to after the hurricane, when all these things were wrong, we couldn't do it on ourselves, and which it was just out of emotions. People did no research, people did no assessments. We look at how it looked. The streets were blocked. There was garbage everywhere, and it was quite a mountain to climb. But all the people that have to date climbed the Mount Everest started with one step. You have to start somewhere. You can't stay at the bottom of the mountain and then look at how high it is, because you'll never get there. We started with nothing. We have made up our mind on the 7th of September last year to just beg our way through life. Stick out your hand, see what they're going to give you, and let's put everything on hold. We do as if we have no ideas, and sometimes we're totally devoid of ideas, but we act that way, and people treat us that way. People belittle us. They treat us like beggars, because that's what we made ourselves to be. And I need our people to get involved, to understand where we are. If you go back to the negotiations, even these negotiations of a form of government, we're 2 months and a bit away, and we still don't have a council of ministers of our government seat. We have parliament seated, but we're still running on an interim government. Why? It's simple. All negotiations is based on my party, my family, and I. There's no thought of people. And until Saman people understand what's happening, and we learn to pull together to get the best for our country, not the best for my person. A lot of people still ask, what's in it for me? It is not about what's in it for me. It is what's in it for the country. How does the country move forward? How do we guarantee a future of our country and our people? These foreign businessmen and foreign investors, they come here because there's money to be made. They don't really come here with my best interests at heart. And until we put together, we are not going to be able to make a dent, to make a change in what's happening there. And this goes back to the days of Claude, Vance, Sarah, Marlin, Theo, all of them. Their negotiations with the outside world and with the Dutch also has nothing to do with our people. They do that. Oh, we can't do without them, so give them what they want. That principle is outdated and it's crazy. And that is why we're treated like lepers and pariahs in this country. We seem to not have any say in what happens here. And I would again mention that the continued push by the parties, all the parties, to put expatriates who have no ties to this country on their list because they could pull votes from certain sectors is wrong. I believe, and this is Elton Jones speaking, that Emily, a Chinese, have nothing in my government, and Biljani has nothing in my parliament. These people have no ties to this country. They're neither one generation or no generation at all. They came here out of their formative years, which means they were already grown, they had their own ideas. They bring nothing to the table, and they have no right to decide the direction of this country. We didn't build this country so that outsiders could come now and take it over and decide where it goes. I'm going to refer you to statements made by two countries in this kingdom. I refer you first to the big one, the biggest part of the kingdom, the Netherlands. I heard Prime Minister Mark Rutte say, you know, people who come to Holland, who come to the Netherlands, must understand and find their way in the back of the line, which for me is quite normal. If you come to another man's place, it's a privilege. You don't have a right to be there, and you can't expect to go in front of other people, which for me is quite simple. I mean, for me, it's easy to understand. All reasonable people would understand that because they guarantee for themselves those rights in their country. Then I take you to Sabre, or closer. I read on Facebook, my good friend Will Johnson was on Facebook, and he's talking about foreigners are buying up land and building apartments in Sabre, and he wanted to warn government, to caution government that the local people are build their apartments and making money from the students who come in. He don't think that we should allow these foreigners who come there, buy land, build apartments to compete with the locals, because that's what they build. That's why they build that, and this economy was running on. So there must be protection for the local people. Now let's turn the page and come to St. Martin. All of these things that were said, I agree with. They're right. People have a right to look out for their own. That's why you're elected. That's why your people put trust in you that they would be able to have a life in their own country, a decent life, not living in squalor and scraping and begging. But you come to St. Martin, and if I say the same thing, or any politician in St. Martin here says the same thing, he's prejudiced, he's racist, he's anything, because in St. Martin you don't have that right to represent your people. The foreigners should be able to come and do what they want. They're supposed to be able to bleed you to death. They're supposed to be able to take your beaches. They're supposed to be able to get land for nothing. They're supposed to be able not to pay their taxes. Everything here should be okay. We are de facto, everybody do what they want here. But all other people, and I've just referred to the smallest country in the kingdom and the largest one, protect what they have. And that I find so hypocritical.
That's a mouthful according to the old people, because when it comes to protecting the citizens and the populace, and you go over to the voters of this country, the indigenous and Martiners, that's what the people expect for them to do. But because it haven't been done for quite some time, the populace is starting to second guess them. And we all know that for the sake of supplying services, this country had opened up to letting people come and so that they can get a job. But most of all, the most productive part of it was when they opened up to Curacao and Aruba and Bonaire. And it seems as though that when they stopped doing that, that's when things went basically downhill.
We didn't open up to let people come and get a job. That's what we like to make. That's the excuses we make now
Wait.
for being inaugurated.
Who said we did not?
We did not. Let me explain what happened.
Was it
in the
government?
boom years? So when Muller Bay and Concord came online, there were many jobs. People in Samarin had 2 and 3 jobs. Then
I had 3.
Then there were people coming from, because it was just at the time when the refineries in Curacao and Aruba were going in their doldrums and stuff like that. So people from those islands too were coming here to work, which was a normal thing. But the hotels and the advisors were seeking ways to get cheaper labor.
That also, yes.
So then
Correct.
they went outside the Antillean Islands, and at the time, we were allowing them, giving them, we were in charge of the work permit. The central government had a resident permit. So it was a different thing. We allowed these people to come, and in the beginning, they were really seasonal. They came because we knew we had a tag on how the season run from
6 months.
Yeah, it run from November 15th till the end of April and goodbye.
Yes.
So after a while, 1 stay, 2 stay, and they start staying, and we opened the floodgates, and everybody coming out of control. Our immigration services has never been properly administered, never run properly. It still isn't running properly today. We have come up with some disgusting thing. Instead of dealing with people who broke the law, we made it possible for them to regularize, legalize themselves with the Brooks Towers. I think we extended it about 5 or 6 times, and people still did nothing, and still we didn't have them removed from the country. So it's not that we invited them, we just refused to enforce the laws. I remember when David Dick was the Minister of Justice, he was given a press conference, and he said, St. Martin is important poverty, and the local government took him to task. Most people took him to task. And nobody took the time to check what he's talking about or to notice that he was right. If you have an economy, a tourism-based economy, based on any other thing, you need to see the people you bring in, how they contribute to that economy. What do they bring? How do they make it better? If you're in tourism and all you bring in are ditch diggers and street sweepers, you're important poverty because they're not bringing any added value. And how many ditch diggers and street sweepers would you need? So in retrospect, now people see that David Dick was right. So what you get now, they say, yeah, but the education system is not producing what we need. That is not true. Everybody here knows, including government and the inspectors and the police and immigration force, knows that we employ foreigners illegally because it's a sort of slavery. They're underpaying these people below the minimum wage. Some of them are not being paid at all. They're living in slave situations in some of these ethnic groups. And it is because they're able to get cheaper labor. The whole world that was in slavery know what it's like to have free labor. If you have free labor, you're going to do well because you're paying for nothing. That's what we're doing in our country now. And that, because we're flooding the country with this kind of cheap labor, it makes it difficult for the locals to get jobs, because if the locals demand what they believe is their due, so nothing less than the minimum wage, yeah, but we don't have, okay, go, we're going to call you. They never call you. They have no need to call you because they're going to take a foreigner. I can remember times when hotels in this country, because immigrations were doing raids, were putting people in the rooms because they were white people. We have a difficulty identifying white people as foreigners because all white people are supposed to be tourists. There were a ton of them on the boats and lagoons, and nothing was done for them because that's the way we look at things. In the meanwhile, while all the arguments are made, and some of them are justified, The fact is this, though. Our people are not getting jobs. We allow the car dealership and car rentals and the insurance to bring in a ton of Guyanese Indians. Indians on Front Street and Back Street use them also, and they say it's our education. You need to talk to them. I talk to a lot of them. I know a lot of them, and believe me, some of them didn't go to elementary school. They're just there because they could treat them how they want and kick them around and pay them what they want. And again, I come back to what I was talking about the week before. It is based on prejudice. Guyana is a country, I think, with 11 or 12 million people. And it's almost 50-50 divided between people of Indian descent and people of African descent. How is it that we only bring the Indians? Why there are no black Guyanese being imported to work in these places? That is by design. It is prejudice. And be that as it may, my interest is that my people, St. Martin people, get a job. We have a lot of young people, Dutch Quarter, Middle Region, Sucker Garden, Cold Bay, K-Bay, who needs jobs. And they can rent cars too. They can sell jewelry on Front Street. You don't need no university degree to sell jewelry. I mean, if you want a guy to learn how many molecules in a ring, I'm sure you could figure it out. But I mean, they're just finding ways not to give you a job. I saw an advertisement in the Herald some time ago. It says that they're looking for somebody to work in a certain job, and the person had to speak some Scandinavian language. They had to speak languages that we don't teach. So in other words, don't come. We don't want you. Because in those things, that's why I have a labor department, because it's crazy. You can demand people in St. Martin to speak Dutch and English, and then any other language will be a plus. But you can't make those languages a priority when they're not taught in my country. In other words, you're saying you don't want my people to work. And not a word from government. If I see it government side too, everybody see these things, the conditions they put. I have a young guy, he goes away, he comes back here. He has hotel management license, a degree, whatever they give them. And the hotel in St. Martin needs a manager, and to make sure keep the local out and justify going to the immigration department and asking for a permit for a director or manager, they put that here you got to have 10 years experience. Where in the hood are you going to get 10 years experience? Somebody coming out of school doesn't have 10 years experience. What they have is the theory of the job. They were taught in the finer things of the job, and the experience you get from being on the job. The peculiar thing is this: you can't get a job without experience, and you're not going to get experience without a job. So our people, our children are left outside there by a concoction made up between the businesses. Most of them seems to be curtailing when it comes to that. And our government have no idea or don't lift a finger to get involved to point out the unjust situation this is to our people and our country, and to rectify it. And that's why we're in these situations. It is not what's wrong with our people, it's what's wrong with the people we elect, who don't really believe that they have a job to defend and protect us.
You're listening to the morning show here on 98.1 Pearl FM, and of course to all those who are viewing, so good to know that you're there. You're on TV Carib, and also you can view us on www.pearlfmradio.sx. You go to view us live, that's watch live too, and you can view the broadcast, okay? And of course, as we know that Curacao is doing some wonderful things. I noticed that two new, I don't know if they're new, but two dry docks were...
Two floating docks,
yeah. Floating docks was brought in last week, and we have a little view on that also. We hope that, let's see if we can get them up. Yes, we can get them up, and they're up. Okay, so we have that there. Give us a little info on that.
I was
Elton.
amazed with this large ship and how it operates. This ship comes in with these things. First of all, they had to sink it a bit to get it under the high bridge, the bridge in Curacao, and they said it was passed with about 2 feet or 2 to 3 feet difference
Right.
when they sink it. This ship sinks and then they take these piers will float off, these temporary piers. I think they're bringing them for the dry dock is going to have work, and they're going to use these temporary. It is not clear whether Curacao is buying them outright or leasing them.
Right.
But it's a part of the economy of Curacao, a part of the business that you can't afford to lose. So you have to find ways to keep the business going, and this is what they come up with. Every economy looks at ways to maintain what they have. We seem not to get the idea yet that business you have and you lose, it's hard to get it back. If you turn business away, you will have, years trying to get back to where you were. And that's important in this tourism economy too. I can remember, and I need to refer to the late now, my friend Joe Richardson and Renee. When they were in the executive council, I was at the airport operations manager. And we had all these executive jets. There was a time we parked over 50 of them in a space that could hold 20. And we had them wing over wing, wing on the wing, because the notice, the letter that was sent down to my boss was that find a way, we don't want to turn no business away. So I was there Saturdays and Sundays, parking planes, pushing in, pulling out, pushing in, pulling out. But there's a way to do things if you really are committed to what you do, and you understand the importance of what you do to the economy and to the country.
Very interesting. And I must say that, so right now we have 2 floating docks.
2 floating docks.
And we have 2 that has to be repaired.
They repair, yeah, they're working on it.
So you think that they would keep them, or that would be more work, right?
Well,
more jobs, man.
There are more jobs. With the work in the Panama Canal and all these things, there's a lot of work around. And a lot of people come down to this part of the world because of the weather, and because Europe and Rotterdam and all those big ports are also loaded. So Curacao offers good business, good work. But I don't know if they're going to keep them, because that's a financial decision also. How long they have them leased, I don't know. I wasn't able to get that from the document I read, the news report I read on social media. But we know that's the business there in Curacao. The dry dock is a big business, and I think it's comforting to see that they find a way to avoid having a lengthy downtime, coming up with a substitute. These are things we need to do here. When we have difficulties, we throw up our hands in despair and there are no solutions, or we go begging, knocking at the neighbor's door to see if they can do it for us. The time for that kind of governing is gone. We need people with ideas, people with vision, people with a drive to succeed and to see the country go forward.
It seems as though that the idea which could have become popular with the local businesses, the local entrepreneurs, for having their small boutique hotels and stuff, would come in quite handy at times like now. But tourists seem to be still coming, even though the big guns are not online.
Tourists are going to come. We gotta make a few things clear. Some of the tourists have timeshare. They have a right to use their timeshare certain times a week, 2 weeks of the year. So those are coming. Then we have the curiosity tourists who come to see if we're really dead. They saw on CNN and other daily broadcasts that St. Martin was finished, so they come to see. Then you have your regular tourists who come, but they stay in these boutique hotels and these local things. It's good for those to pick up the slack. Last time we spoke with the former head of the tourist bureau, he told us that they were picking up the slack beautifully. We weren't seeing any lack of space because these little inns and hotels were picking up the slack. So we get a chance to do business. But I believe that even when we would get out of this period, these folks should be given the assistance they need to upgrade their properties and so that it can be a contributing factor, because with the economy we have now, we need to expand to get back where we were and to go forward, because we have much more needs now, and we're going to need to collect much more taxes and so. So if we're able to target, instead of 2 million, go for more people, the country will do better. There will be more jobs, hopefully for local people. But I think it's a good thing right now that the local small inns are getting a break, because before that was not the case. And I've also brought this up with the tourist director at the time, that nothing is being done for what we consider the shoppers' tourism, the tourism out of the Caribbean, a sector of our tourism product that we ignore. We do nothing to attract it or do nothing. And we stand the chance, we run the risk of losing it. We need to remember this business that we have now, the shoppers' tourism, is so coming from the islands, and the southern islands, down south as the old people call them, was in Puerto Rico before. And because of a lot of things, they end up being here. And we're doing the same thing now, putting all these requirements, visa and all those stuff. And I don't understand why. We put a lot of things, but we still don't control the borders. So before we start getting rid of all these niceties, let's control the borders and then decide, because a guy coming to shop, sure, she's going to be here Friday, go by car. She lets her wherever they go. They shop for bags and boxes. They put them on a boat and they're gone. They're not a danger. They're not looking for a job. A guy who comes staying at Great Bay or staying at DV, we know he is staying there, but we leave him in anyhow. Or he stays at VC Flanders or Seaview, but never check in. They live somewhere in a shack in the hill and we never find them after that. We don't check those things. In the United States, in the 70s, when I was going to fly school, I went to rent an apartment because it would come out cheaper. I could cook for myself and all these things. And the lady said, no, that can't happen, because on a form they give you, it says you must be a bona fide citizen to rent an apartment. Else you have to stay in a hotel or a guest house, because that's what guests do. If you rent a home or an apartment, then you're bona fide, you're living there, you're not a guest. And this is what we have here. People are coming here. They come in here supposedly for 2 weeks. First we used to have them have show money. I don't know if that gone out. I don't hear about it anymore. But anyway, we know what's a man costs to live here. So a guy is going to be staying at, name one of the smaller hotels, Seaview or VC Flanders. And he has enough money for 2 weeks, but then after 2 weeks we don't hear of him. He doesn't leave.
Or even
We have
Central
computers.
Hotel, yeah.
We have computers. So we know he didn't leave. But there's no search for him. Nobody looks for him. He overstays his welcome, and he goes and he comes in as he pleases, because now he's just a man. Because that's the way we look at things. We fail, no, really, we honestly fail to do the things we have to do, and we blame it on everything else. We are, in that sense, the laziest people in the world. We don't go. The United States have 350 million people. They will find you if you overstay. They know where to find you. They find you. And we don't find nobody. We can't find nobody in Front Street. You know, things happen in Front Street, and I saw, yeah, the police bar off the road and the person got away. Front Street have 5 exits, and people can still get away. I see them shut down big cities like Miami, New York, Chicago. Shut it down totally with hundreds of roads, hundreds of ways in and out. But we, with 5 streets, people get away. They get away. We can't find nobody.
Interesting. If we look through the Caribbean at this present moment, Mr. Jones, we will also see that the tourist minister, Mr. Edmund Bartlett, has said that crime and security concerns were or is hurting the Caribbean's potential to generate greater returns from its tourism product, and it is based on studies. Very interesting. And the region could have earned at least about 13 billion US dollars more than the US 37 billion that was earned. Let's say in 2017. Matter of fact, Mr. Bartlett, who was speaking at the first day of the 4-day 33rd annual general conference for the Association of the Caribbean Commissioners of Police at the Montego Bay Convention Center in St. James, said that studies have shown that the region has the potential to earn more than it is now earning. What's your calculus on what Mr. Bartlett is saying?
I think he's on point, but I don't think it's anything new. Everybody understands the importance of safety and security. We have discussed on this program before. It's not that people that come to the Caribbean, come to this island, they haven't seen crime, but there must be something seen to be done about crime. People hanging out in certain places, harassing people or threatening people all the time, and nothing is done about it. That gives people a kind of uneasiness. People walking from the hotels up Front Street and walking around the area, and people attacking them and we're never able to solve them. That is a threat on your security, a threat on your economy, because whether you try to hide these things in page 13 of the newspaper or not, today, in the day of a wired society, the internet and so, these things get around. And these people go back and speak to their friends and their neighbors, and the negative press is hard to go down. You have to remember, the same way we have sold this country word of mouth, we can kill it word of mouth. We have got to do much more in securing this country and having people feel safe. People need to feel safe. When somebody will go to the beach and leave their belongings in their car, park what? The beach is about maybe 10 meters, 12 meters from the car, and somebody just blow with everything and you never found it. Or somebody leaves the hotel room and the hotel supposed to have security, everything is gone. Then it begins to get really disgusting, and people start to complain. One of the things I know that has been done in the past, and was done with a lot of islands in the Caribbean, the United States consulates have an advisory role, so they look at what's happening, and when they put on an advisory on your country, it means that all of a sudden your arrivals are going to dip because people are going to start withdrawing. They're going to have reservations about visiting you because you're considered dangerous and unsafe. So everybody in government, everybody in this country should understand that, should know that safety and security is important, and how to deal with it. And of course, we have all these talk about putting up cameras and doing this, but our whole focus seems to be on Phillipsburg. Now, Phillipsburg is the capital, let's say the financial or the economic capital of St. Martin, but other people are important too. It is just as important what happens in Simpson Bay, in Middle Region, in Dutch Quarter, anywhere, because safety and security should be countrywide, not just Phillipsburg where the businesses are. We cannot run a government that looks out for the rich, but the poor have to live on their own resources, so you're on your own. It can't happen that way. There must be the same input for all areas of this society, and all people deserve to live happy in their homes, free of fear of being attacked, of being or accosted, being robbed, and those kind of things.
Very interesting. And if we reflect on our disposition or position, or the dangling of the carrot in front of us shortly after the hurricane, and of course the welcoming of all of the heavy truck materials and stuff that came in, which was well accepted. We noticed that the British Virgin Islands seems to have an issue and a situation where they are also having these things. The British Virgin Islands on Tuesday appealed to the United Kingdom legislators to rethink their positions regarding new legislation that could seriously affect the future socio-economic development of the British overseas territory. And to put it further, and I think here this is the punchline, the BVI chief diplomat Benito Whitley has told the UK government officials and parliamentarians that the United Kingdom's current and future relationship with the overseas territories should be based on what was also said to the Netherlands, on mutual respect and prosperity, particular as Britain prepares to leave the European Union in March of 2019.
Listen to me. Respect is something that is not freely given if you don't demand it. The Netherlands, in dealing with us, have no need to deal with us in any specific way. They have made it clear, look, we're 17 million, you're a few thousand, what we want, we get. And that stems from the fact, when you see what happens last year, and I say, we operated out of emotions. We were scared. We were hit hard, and a lot of political spin also. But Parliament, when Parliament in a plenary session decided, we don't care what they want, we don't want to see it, just bring it, we're going to sign it, we have lost all legitimacy to be called the representatives of our people. Because whether Parliament wanted to change one letter in the document or not is not the issue. Parliament, by the very constitution they say they protect or defend, they have a duty to read the document, peruse the document, and see what's in it. You cannot, after the fact, talk about what you don't like and what you don't think is right. I heard ministers now talking about the World Bank being involved in the problems they're having in it, but we could have foreseen this thing had we take the time and read the government, read the document, see what was being proposed, how it would affect the total recovery. We would have known then, in mind you, I've said this before, I've heard 1,000 times they said thanks so much that I think the Dutch get tired of hearing them. But the same people today are singing another tune. You know why? What they foresaw, that other people will come and give you the money and tell you, man, go out and have a good day, doesn't happen that way. And we had to make sure that we were setting the priorities. We were setting the projects that were going to be done right now. It's going to be done by the NRRP. It's going to go to the World Bank Trust Fund. They're going to send it back to the steering committee. And that's where we are. So to avoid the semblance of nothing happening, what have the Dutch done? And listen to me, the Dutch has been around for hundreds of years, centuries. Since the 80-year war for freedom from Spain, the Dutch has had a lot of practice in doing this. And what do they do now? They took out a few million and said, no, these for immediate projects. So immediate projects, housing and other things that they identify. And then the rest of the things that you think are important to you, you don't go through the grind. You don't go, it have to be identified in the NRRP, and then you send it to the World Bank. Then the World Bank sends it to the steering committee. The steering committee meets on it, critiques it, and if they find it good, hoorah. But if they don't find it good, this is where your problems start, because it goes back to the drawing board, and this steering committee isn't meeting again for another half year, because they meet twice a year. So you see where we are in this thing. And so everybody now, their euphoria is being deflated, reality is setting in, and all those who shouted in favor now are finding faults, are finding their holes in it, and they too are starting to complain. But when other people spoke up against it, those people were being ungrateful. But because people are able to see or read between the lines, doesn't make them ungrateful. Anybody who gives you anything you're grateful for. I still am against the fact that they use an act of God, an emergency, to put pressure on me. I think that's inhumane, but it's expected from a colonial power.
Well, and just to wrap that up, the BVI is actually saying that it has been urging the UK legislative not to undermine the self-determination of the island and other overseas territories that should that hold the responsibility for the regulation of their financial services and industries, and to not create an uneven playing field with the Crown, dependencies, and jurisdictions.
Wow.
It seems to be something that is quite familiar with us.
Well, I am very proud of the BVI and the way they deal with it, the British dependencies. That's not the case here. We talk about autonomy.
But they have their diplomat making sure that he depend.
Yeah, but we don't have. Our people, our elected officials are satisfied to have the European part of the kingdom come and dictate what happens. I've said during the election campaign and after that we are electing a government that will be taking its orders from another government. Time will see me out on that.
And going further, we have also the OECS and also CARICOM and some of the 12 and 15 state members who are also taking a stab at the whole issue. So, and we are only about 6 of us, and that's the way it should have actually been, that the full 5 and 6 islands should be taking a stab at anything that comes our way.
Colonialism, slavery and colonialism is 400 years of indoctrination. We have not, the Netherlands Antilles has been broken up because we couldn't get together on nothing, we couldn't agree on anything, we never will agree on nothing. We should be able to become members of CARICOM and the OCS because we're in this part of the world, but now we do it as observers for the kingdom. You know, because we talk about autonomy. I honestly believe that besides the definition given in the dictionary, we have no idea what it is. No, seriously, when I listened to my parliament, and so I heard parliament say, well, no, we were arguing about this dispute regulation, and I heard parliament say, nothing is wrong with it. It's we who are not using the separate status right. And then, what you mean I'm not using it right? If we're not using it right, then you resign. If you say that you're not using it right, you don't know what you're doing, you should resign. People should be big enough to resign saying, I failed the country. And that's what's happening now in our parliament. Some modern people have no representation because we're wishy-washy. The only thing we know what the Maho group of company was, or what the Ansari group of company, this group of company, we defend those things. The people themselves, I haven't heard anything coming out of Parliament that said this is for the people. We have half-heartedly tried to deal with the short-term contract, and we messed it up worse than it was. We can point at nothing we did to better the lives of Sister Martin. Pre or post Irma, doesn't matter. We have done nothing. Since 10-10-10, there has been nothing coming that says this one is for the people.
Well, you can do one for the people now. It's
okay.
Your turn.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the program today. This has been your program, The Morning Show with Alton Jones. Do have a present Wednesday going forward. If you're going to jump tonight, do it with moderation. It's a working day tomorrow.